Hi guys. Yeah, so after the first 4 videos about the PIL dataset, we're just gonna summarize where we are with exploring the dataset. So let's look at this is the dataset. This is the original dataset, right? So we had a few questions about it when we looked at it in the first 4 videos, and this is the initial question, right? All the months from the same year, yes, got some answers here, and then they're all from the year 2020, okay? And then with regard to the continent and country mapping check, it's something we can do, just to make sure the data is one to that every country and continent is mapped correctly. For example, like you see South Africa belongs to Africa. You don't have a data where South Africa belongs to like America, for example, right? We can do that. And then also, another thing to do is to check the sequence of, you need some domain knowledge here, the sequence of movement types of the containers. Okay, so we have days and containers are the two dimensions, the two dwells, how long a container stays at the port, and then how many containers there are. Okay, and then there's a unit dwells, just a multiplication of the two. So quite straightforward in terms of, so a lot more information as to, so these two dimensions, with the data, a lot of data cleaning was done. The view sheet is to have another sheet to view a raw data sheet, okay, so that if the other sheet is deleted for some reason, right, then we put back into the workbook, we can see it again quite easily, okay? And then we did some descriptive statistics on the data. So we have the number of containers, units, and then the number of days, right? And then the multiplication of the two. We went through by country for containers, for days, and then for the multiplication of the two. This one here, in terms of number of containers, I think is China that stands out. It's a little bit, the list is quite long, so it looks like it's Chile, but if you spread it out a bit more, you see it's actually China. China is the one, China is the country, right? And then also number of units, right? Just spread out by the country. Long list here you see is China. You mouse over, okay, China is the one with all the different months, right? So China dominates the picture. So here we're doing some cleaning of the data set, right? What I'm doing here is to ensure that all the columns, right? Like for example, we know that it's 2020, so I put in all the years 2020 here, and we know all the months. So I'm also adding in the numerical value of the month, and then finally putting it into a date object. So there's a column here that gives you the Excel date. This just makes things a lot easier for later when we're plotting things, right? And then for all the units here, these things don't have units like months, continents, countries, right? But for these numbers, the units, okay, containers, days, and then container days, the multiplication of the two, right? And then proper formatting of the column name at the top, so that later when we do pivot, right? This row here, row 2, basically says, is this a new column that I added, or is it the raw data? The raw data would be all these columns E, F, G, H, I, J, all the way until M. And then column N onwards, these are new columns that I added to what I do here. So using some of the things we learned in class, like here, what I'm doing is I'm just pulling in, if we did some descriptive statistics on the days and containers here. Okay, so we have here, if I just add insert view, I want to freeze the panes right here. Okay, so in the leftmost column, column A, you can see here descriptive statistics, right? You have max Q4321 minimum, Okay, these are the descriptive statistics. So containers, they have a maximum is a lot, 61,000, but on average it's only the median is only 36, right? And then 4 days. So it's very skewed, obviously. So what I'm doing here in this column N is to remove the outliers. Okay, so you see rows 5 and 6. Those are the outliers, right? On the high side and on the low side, which is 1.5 is basically, is plus or minus 1.5 IQR, right? The interquartile range, right? Okay. So interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1, right? And then, so what I'm doing in column N is to basically, if the data falls outside as an outlier, ignore it. And so we look at the new descriptive statistics here in yellow. So these are the new descriptive statistics. See the range, the IQR has fallen a lot. Everything has dropped to more reasonable numbers, So these are the more reasonable numbers we have. On the median is, three containers and 9 days. Okay, and we could probably also add like a mean. We can add a mean here as well, just to, right? So I'm just gonna copy the same. All right, I'm gonna add like mean. Okay, change this to average. So the average is 5. Okay, which is, and then the average is 79. Okay, so it's higher than the median. So okay, so this is mean, which is higher than median. All right, for our data set. Okay, so that's telling us that a lot of the data is skewed to the smaller side, right? So the middle value is like 3 containers, but so there's a lot of cases where you have small number of containers, but on average, right, you have more. Mean is actually greater than the middle value, so you have a distribution that is skewed to the right side. Yeah. Okay. Let me just pause for a while. Okay, let's continue. So we saw that the mean is greater than the median for both the containers and the number of days. So here, 5 days, right? 5 days is the mean. 3 days is the median, and the mean is about 80 containers. Very skewed probably by China, and then the median is 9, right? So 79 containers, okay, is the mean, which is much higher than the median value. So a lot of cases, a lot of the observations are, less than 9 being the middle value. Okay, so the mean pulled heavily to the right, up to 79, because there are probably fat tails. I mean, not fat tails, but like a very skewed distribution to the right. So on the right of 9, you have a heavy observation, right? For much larger number of containers. So what I did here on the right is so those are the 2 dimensions. The next column, in column N, and N is for the containers. for the days, and then the the unit is days. All right, and containers, and then here would be container days, right? Day or day containers. Okay, so day times time and space. Then what I did here was to actually count the number of observations that we had, right? Open up to bin it. So if you look at the spreadsheet here, I pinned some, just like a histogram. So in column AO, the bin is 1 day. If I change it to 2, you'll see that the chart will change. And now it bins it into 2, so up to 20 days. So if you keep binning, changing the number here, depending on how many days you want to bin it, like 5 days, okay, then you see out of the 23,000 rows, most of the data falls into like 0 to 5 days, right? And then it drops off, right? And then we look at this, the same thing for containers as well, just to get a sense of, how many observations we are seeing for all the different buckets. So for number of containers, again, the bin is 2. If I increase it to 5 here, then it kind of it shows you a wider x-axis, and it shows you it drops off here, right? So if I make this bigger, yeah, it drops off around 25 to 30 containers, and then you don't see much more data after that, right? Yeah. Okay. So this is the binning. These are the parameters here, the size of the bins. So we can then look at them in 2 dimensions across the days and the container bins. Right. The bucketed by days and bucketed by containers. And you see that a lot of the data is concentrated here. Okay. So again, if you look at column A, when you change the bin, right? So I'm just gonna make this a brighter green, make it bold, and a bigger number. Okay, so that it can be seen. Bold and 20, right? So these, right, are the configurations. So if I change this to like 1 day, just to see how the shape changes. Okay, there you go. The surface changes, and you can see the right. So we just bin by 1 container. Now this is the data that it looks like after all the outliers have been removed, right? Okay, so this is like a 2-dimensional histogram. So based on this, and we can continue to see how we want to clean and process the data before we pull it into Power BI. All right? Yeah, thanks. Let's catch up.